The twin suns of Dereth burned above the iron marketplace, turning the air into waves of heat and dust. The smell of oil, smoke, and fear hung heavy. Aliens of every kind shouted, argued, and laughed around cages filled with captives. It was not a place for mercy. It was a place where lives were sold. In the center of the market stood a cage larger than the others, made of thick metal rods glowing faintly with energy. Inside sat a giantess, her skin marked with pale blue lines that shimmered faintly under the suns. Her wrists were locked with heavy chains that glowed whenever she moved. She had been a warrior once. Anyone could see that in her tall posture, the strength in her shoulders, and the way her golden eyes still refused to look down. The traders shouted her name. The Titaness of Vora. She crushed 5 guards with her bare hands. They called her a monster, a beast too dangerous to live, and yet they wanted gold for her. They wanted someone foolish or brave enough to buy her. Crowds gathered to see her. Some threw stones, others laughed. A young alien boy pointed and asked, "Why doesn't she fight?" His father replied, "Because the chains burn her blood if she tries." Inside the cage, the giantess sat still. Her throat was dry, her body weak, but her spirit was not broken. She closed her eyes, remembering her world. Green fields, thunder in the mountains, her people's songs. Now all that was gone. All she had left was silence and pain. Then, through the noise of the market, came a new sound. Soft footsteps. The traders turned. A human was walking between the stalls. Small compared to the towering aliens, but his steps were calm. He wore a brown jacket, dusty boots, and a single silver band around his wrist that marked him as someone from the outer colonies. Humans were rare here. Most aliens thought they were weak or extinct, so when this one walked toward the giantess's cage, the crowd began to whisper. He stopped in front of her cell and looked up. His eyes were calm but sharp. "How much?" he asked. The trader, a thick-skinned alien with 4 eyes, laughed. "You can't afford her, little human. She's too much trouble for you." The human said nothing. He stepped closer, his gaze meeting the giantess's. She looked back, tired and guarded. Her voice, low and rough, finally spoke. "Don't waste your credits, human. They'll kill you before you leave the market." The trader smirked. "See, even she warns you." Then, to show his control, he pressed a button. The chains around her wrists flared with energy. The giantess gasped in pain and fell to one knee. That was when the human moved. His voice, calm but sharp as steel, broke through the laughter around them. "Don't touch what's mine." Everything stopped. The trader froze. The crowd went silent. Even the giantess looked up, her golden eyes wide in disbelief. The human reached into his coat and tossed a small metal case onto the table. It opened with a click, showing glowing credit chips, enough to buy 10 slaves. "That's the price," he said. "Unlock her now." The trader hesitated. "You're serious?" The human's eyes narrowed. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Slowly, the alien pressed a code into his wrist pad. The energy in the chains faded. The locks opened with a hiss. The giantess lifted her hand, staring at the open cuffs in disbelief. The trader laughed nervously. "She'll kill you the moment she's free." But the human turned and said quietly, "No, she won't." He looked up at the giantess again. "You can leave, or follow me. Your choice." She stood towering over him, her shadow covering his small frame. Around them, aliens backed away, ready to run if she attacked. But she didn't move. She looked down at him, at this strange, small human who had just bought her freedom. The human turned to walk away through the crowd. For a moment, she stayed still. Then, her chains clattering softly at her feet, she followed him. The crowd whispered as they disappeared into the haze of the market. Some said the human was mad. Others said he was brave. But one thing was certain. No one in the market of chains would ever forget the day a human walked in, looked at a giantess, and said, "Don't touch what's mine." The giantess followed the human through the narrow, crowded streets of the alien market. Her footsteps shook the metal floor, and everyone they passed stopped to stare. The human didn't look back once. He moved with quiet confidence, his coat flapping in the hot wind as if he wasn't leading a creature 3 times his height. When they reached the edge of the market, the noise faded. Beyond the stalls stood the desert plains of Dereth, endless red dust stretching to the horizon. A small transport shuttle rested there, old but steady. The human walked straight to it and opened the hatch. The giantess hesitated. "You freed me. But why?" Her deep voice echoed in the empty air. The human finally turned around. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried a quiet sadness. "Because you didn't deserve to be in chains," he said simply. "No one does," she frowned. "That's it? You risk your life for a stranger?" He shrugged lightly. "I've been a stranger my whole life." It seemed fair. The answer confused her even more. She had expected arrogance, a sense of ownership, maybe even pity, but not this strange, calm kindness. Her world had never seen a man like this. He climbed into the shuttle and glanced back. "Are you coming, or do you want to stay and let them hunt you again?" The giantess's jaw tightened. Without another word, she bent low and entered the shuttle. Inside, the space was small, filled with humming lights and the smell of old metal. She had to crouch, her head almost touching the ceiling. The human moved to the pilot seat, pressing buttons and flipping switches. "You can sit," he said over his shoulder. She gave a low laugh. "I'd crush your floor." He smiled faintly. "Then stand. Just don't fall on me." The shuttle lifted off, engines roaring as the ground dropped away. Through the small window, the market became a cluster of dots fading into the red sand. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The hum of the ship was the only sound. Finally, the giantess broke the silence. "They called you human. I thought your kind vanished from this part of the galaxy." "Most did," he said. "I'm one of the few left on the outer colonies." She studied him carefully. He looked fragile, soft skin, no armor, no claws. And yet he had walked into that market with more courage than anyone she'd ever seen. "What is your name?" she asked. "Eli," he replied. "Eli Cross." She repeated the name slowly, tasting the sound. "Eli, I am Laren of the Titanborn." He nodded. "Nice to meet you, Laren." I think her lips curved slightly. "You are strange, human. You act as if I'm not dangerous." Eli adjusted the ship's controls, eyes still on the stars ahead. "If you wanted to hurt me, you'd have done it already." Laren fell silent. He was right. Something about him disarmed her. Not weakness, but something stronger. Something she didn't understand. Suddenly, the ship jolted. Warning lights flashed red. Eli cursed under his breath and pulled a lever. "They're following us," he said. Through the rear screen, small attack drones appeared, their blue engines glowing as they closed in fast. "The traitors," Laren growled. "They don't like losing their prize." Eli gritted his teeth. "Hang on." The ship dove through the air, twisting between canyons of rock. Blaster fire streaked past, shaking the hull. Laren gripped a support beam to steady herself. "Give me the controls," she shouted. Eli shook his head. "You'd break them." "Then tell me what to do." He pointed to a lever beside her. "Pull that when I say now." The drones drew closer. The alarm screamed louder. Then Eli shouted, "Now!" Laren yanked the lever. A burst of blue light exploded from the ship's rear, an electromagnetic pulse. The drones blinked out, spinning and crashing into the desert below. Silence returned. The warning lights dimmed. Eli exhaled slowly and looked back at her with a grin. "Not bad for our first team up." She crossed her arms, her voice low. "Don't think we are a team yet, human." He smiled anyway. "You'll come around." As the ship climbed higher, the desert became small beneath them. Laren leaned against the wall, her chains still clinking softly. She stared at the man who had bought her freedom, not with ownership, but something else entirely. She didn't know it yet. But the moment he said, "Don't touch what's mine," had changed both of their destinies forever. The night sky of Dereth was painted in deep violet and gold, its moons glowing faintly over the desert. Eli's shuttle sliced through the darkness like a silver ghost, moving toward the barren cliffs that hid the remains of old mining colonies. Inside the small ship, the air was quiet except for the hum of the engines. Laren, the giantess, sat near the cargo hold, too tall to fit in the normal quarters. The faint blue lines on her skin glowed softly in the dark, marking her Titan-born heritage. She hadn't spoken for hours. Her golden eyes kept watching the stars as if trying to remember what freedom felt like. Eli adjusted the ship's autopilot and walked back to her. "You should rest," he said softly. She looked down at him. "I haven't rested in years." He tilted his head. "Then start now." Her lips twitched. "You're strange, human. You speak to me as if I'm one of you." He shrugged. "Maybe because I see you that way." Laren turned away, hiding the flicker of confusion on her face. She didn't understand him. No one had ever treated her with respect. Most beings looked at her and saw a weapon or a monster, but this man looked at her as if she was just a person, Suddenly, the ship's alarm beeped softly. Eli's eyes narrowed. "We've got company." Lorraine stood quickly, her massive frame making the floor creak. "The hunters again?" "Maybe," Eli said, checking the radar. "2 ships. Small, fast. They must have tracked our signal." "Then let me handle them," she said, moving toward the ramp. He blocked her path. "Not yet. You'll get shot the second you step outside." "I'm not afraid of pain," she said firmly. Eli looked up at her, his voice steady. "I know, but you don't need to fight alone anymore." Those words made her freeze. The engines roared louder as the pursuers closed in. Red lights flashed across the control panel. Eli grabbed his plasma rifle while Laren clenched her fists, ready for war. The first blast hit. The ship shook violently, sparks flying from the ceiling. "We can't outrun them," Eli muttered. "They've got better thrusters." Laren stepped to the rear bay door, ripped it open with one powerful pull, and leaped out into the night sky. Eli shouted, "Laren!" But it was too late. Her enormous figure dropped from the shuttle, landing hard in the dust below. The impact made the ground tremble. She looked up at the enemy crafts diving toward her, their cannons glowing red. Her eyes burned with fury. "You want your prize? Come take it," she roared. The first ship fired a barrage of plasma bolts, but Lorraine ran straight into the attack, her speed shocking for her size. She grabbed a huge piece of rock and hurled it with all her might. The boulder smashed into one of the ships, sending it spinning into the cliffs in a burst of fire. Eli steered the shuttle low, hovering above her. "Get in!" He yelled through the comms, but she didn't. The second ship circled overhead, aiming directly at Eli's shuttle. Laren's heart stopped for a second. She saw the glowing cannon charge up, and before she could think, she jumped. The plasma blast hit her instead of the ship. The explosion threw her body across the sand. Eli's voice cracked over the comms. "Lorraine, no!" He landed the shuttle roughly and ran toward her. The sand burned under his boots as he reached her side. She was still breathing, but weak, her glowing lines dimming. Her eyes opened slowly. "You should have left me," she whispered. Eli knelt beside her, shaking his head. "Not a chance." He pressed a medical patch to her wound. The blue light stabilized her pulse. His hands were trembling, but he didn't stop. "I didn't save you to lose you now." Lorraine looked at him for a long time, her vision blurring. "You're either the bravest or the most foolish human I've ever met." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe both." As the night wind blew over the desert, the wreck of the enemy ship burned in the distance. The stars reflected in Laren's eyes as she whispered, "Then I will fight by your side, human." "No more running." Eli met her gaze, steady and sure. "Good," he said. "Because this is just the beginning." Above them, the first light of dawn spread across the red sands. 2 souls standing against the galaxy together for the first time. The morning sun rose slowly over the burning wreckage in the desert. Smoke drifted upward in gray ribbons, and the smell of scorched metal filled the air. Laren sat on the sand, her once glowing marks now dim, while Eli worked silently beside her damaged ship. His jacket was torn, and a streak of dust covered his face, but his hands moved with calm precision as he repaired the controls. For a while, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the echo of last night's battle. Then Lorraine finally said, "You could have left me." "You had the chance." Eli didn't look up. "You think I'd leave someone who saved my life?" "You already saved mine," she replied. "Twice now. Why keep risking yourself?" He stopped, tightening the last wire, then turned to face her. His eyes were tired but steady. "Because freedom always costs something, and if I can pay a little of that cost, I will." She stared at him for a long moment. No one had ever spoken to her like that. To most beings, she was a weapon, a prize, or a problem to be solved. To this human, she was something worth protecting. Before she could answer, the ship's radar beeped again. Eli cursed under his breath. More incoming signals, 3 of them. Bigger ships this time. Laren rose to her full height, the ground trembling slightly beneath her feet. "They won't stop until they have us both." Eli grabbed his plasma rifle and a small device from his belt. "Then we don't give them the chance." He pressed a button, activating a small beacon that projected a holographic map. "There's an old mine shaft 10 kilometers east. We can hide there until I fix the jump drive." Lorraine frowned. "Hide? You risked your life to free me. Now you want to run?" Eli gave her a quick look. "I said we'll hide, not surrender." There's a difference. The wind howled as they started moving. The desert stretched endlessly, glowing under the suns. The alien ships appeared in the distance, 3 black dots growing larger, chasing them. Lorraine carried the damaged power core under one arm, while Eli ran beside her, his breath quick but determined. Suddenly, the sky lit up with plasma fire. The ground erupted behind them, throwing sand high into the air. "Faster!" Eli shouted. They reached the cliffs and slipped into the shadows of the old mining tunnels. Inside, the air was cold and damp. The sound of engines echoed from above as the enemy ships scanned the area. Eli leaned against a rock, panting. "We can't stay here long." Laren knelt beside him, watching his trembling hands. Without warning, she took off one of her metal cuffs and placed it beside him. "Use this." Titan metal. It can shield against their scanners. He blinked. "That's part of your restraint." She nodded. "Then let it protect us instead of chaining me." He smiled faintly and began wiring the cuff into his device. "You really are full of surprises." Minutes later, the radar sounds faded. The ships passed overhead without finding them. For now, they were safe. Eli slumped back, exhausted. "We made it." But Laren didn't answer. Her gaze was on him, on the blood seeping from his shoulder. The plasma burn was small but deep. She leaned closer, her massive hand surprisingly gentle as she touched the wound. "You're hurt." "I've had worse," he said with a weak smile, her voice softened. "You shouldn't take the pain for me." Eli looked up at her, meeting her golden eyes. "You don't get it, do you? You're not my prisoner, Laren. You're my partner now, and partners protect each other." Something in her chest tightened, something she hadn't felt in years. Respect, trust, even warmth. Outside, the roar of enemy engines slowly disappeared into the distance. Inside the cave, only the soft hum of their equipment remained. Lorraine turned to him, her voice low. "You risked everything for me, human." "I will not forget it," he chuckled quietly. "You'd better not. I'm running out of spare parts." A small smile curved her lips. For the first time, the proud Titan-born warrior allowed herself to laugh. But far above, on the orbiting trade station, a new order was already being given. One that would put a price not just on her head, but on his. The price of freedom was rising fast. The cave was dark except for the pale glow of Laren's markings and the soft blue light from Eli's wrist device. Outside, the desert storm screamed across the cliffs, hiding their presence from the search drones above. Inside, there was stillness, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Eli sat cross-legged beside a flickering hollow lamp, repairing a broken circuit board from the ship's jump core. Sparks danced in his hands. His face was calm, but his eyes were distant, as if haunted by memories he didn't want to recall. Laren watched him quietly. For all his fragility, the human carried himself like a man who had survived worse than war. "You work like someone who's done this 1,000 times," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Maybe I have. You're no ordinary wanderer," she continued.
No trader walks into a slave market with that kind of courage.
"Who are you really, Eli Cross?" He paused, his fingers freezing mid-motion. The light from the hollow lamp painted his face in blue and shadow. Then slowly he set the tool down. "Do you know what humans used to be, Lorraine?" he asked. She frowned. "A legend. A race of builders. Some say your kind vanished long before I was born." Eli nodded. "Not vanished, forgotten." He took a small disc from his pocket and placed it on the ground. When he pressed the center, it projected a glowing image, a silver starship, ancient but magnificent, with the emblem of a blue Earth behind it. This was the Odyssey, one of the first colony ships from Earth. My ancestors left centuries ago to build new worlds. But something went wrong. The colonies lost contact and the galaxy moved on. The others believed humans were gone. Laren leaned closer, her golden eyes reflecting the hologram's light. "So you're one of the lost?" He nodded. "The last generation, maybe. My colony fell when I was young. Raiders destroyed it. I escaped with a few survivors. Since then, I've been searching for remnants of human technology, things that might restore what we were." She studied him with quiet awe. "And you think freeing me helps that dream?" He looked at her seriously. The Titan-born and the humans once fought side by side. "You probably don't know this, but your people's oldest songs mention us. The small flames who stood beside giants." Her eyes widened slightly. "That's impossible." "Those are ancient myths." Eli smiled sadly. "Maybe not myths. Maybe memories." Lorraine's hand brushed her chest where faint marks glowed brighter. "My grandmother used to tell me that Titan-born warriors never kneel to anyone. except those who see their soul instead of their size. She looked down at him. You did that. Eli turned back to the jump core, his voice softer now. I didn't save you for power, Laren. I saved you because every time we ignore injustice, we become part of it. My people forgot that lesson once. I won't let it happen again. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with respect. Then, suddenly, the cave trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Laren rose instantly, her instincts sharp. They found us. Eli grabbed his equipment. We can't fight here. The jump core isn't ready. Then I'll buy you time, she said, stepping toward the cave mouth. He reached for her arm. You'll die if you go alone. Her gaze softened. You once said we're partners. Partners protect each other, remember? Before he could reply, she walked into the storm. Lightning flashed across the desert as her massive silhouette faced the oncoming lights of the enemy ships. Inside, Eli worked furiously, connecting wires and rerouting power. The jump drive hummed weakly, then flared to life. He shouted through the comms, Laren, it's ready. Get back! But her voice came through the speaker, steady, proud. Go, Eli. If you stay, they'll kill you. I can hold them off. He clenched his fists. Not without you. Then make sure this isn't for nothing, she said softly. Live. Rebuild what was lost. Through the dust, Eli saw her form surrounded by plasma fire, her armor glowing like molten silver. For a moment, she looked like a goddess from the old human myths. Unbreakable. Untamed. Then a final explosion shook the cliffs, and everything went white. When Eli awoke inside his ship, the scanners showed nothing but silence where she had stood. He pressed his hand against the glass, whispering, You kept your promise, Titanborn. Now it's my turn. The engines roared to life, carrying him into the stars, toward destiny, and the truth that would soon shake the galaxy. The blackness of space stretched endlessly, filled with stars that burned like silent witnesses. Eli's ship, the Solace, drifted through the void, its hull scarred from the last battle. For 3 days he hadn't slept. The hum of the engines was his only companion now. He replayed the last transmission again and again, Lorrain's voice fading through static. Live. Eli. Rebuild what was lost. Every word tore at him, but giving up wasn't in his nature. He was human, and humans didn't surrender, not even to fate. The ship's console blinked suddenly. A red warning flashed across the screen. Unknown vessels approaching. Eli straightened, his fingers flying over the controls. No, not again. 3 ships appeared on the radar, fast, heavily armed, and marked with the insignia of the Galactic Syndicate. They were the same hunters who had chased them across the desert. The ones who wanted Lorraine back, dead or alive, Eli muttered under his breath. Guess they're not done with me either. He powered the engines and dove toward a nearby asteroid field. The rocks spun in chaotic orbits huge enough to hide him if he played it right. The ship rattled violently as he weaved through narrow gaps, plasma fire blazing past his cockpit. But these hunters were smarter now. They didn't chase recklessly, they herded him, cutting off every escape path. Come on, Eli. Think, he whispered. He opened a side panel under the console, revealing a small glowing crystal, the Titan core Laren had once carried. He'd recovered it from the desert ruins after the explosion. The last trace of her power pulsed faintly inside it like a heartbeat. Eli clenched his jaw. You're still with me, aren't you? He connected the core to the ship's main reactor. The lights flickered, then burned brighter than ever before. The engines roared to life, tripling in power. The Solace shot forward like lightning, surprising the hunters as it vanished deep into the asteroid field. But the lead hunter ship followed closely, firing relentlessly. A plasma bolt grazed Eli's wing, sending alarms blaring. He fought to keep control as the ship spiraled between 2 massive asteroids. Then his radar caught something strange, an energy signature ahead. Familiar, powerful. Eli frowned. That's impossible. He turned the ship toward it. The hunter stayed on his tail. The energy grew stronger, until the darkness ahead opened into a glowing rift. A signal came through the comms, broken, static-filled, but real. Eli. His heart stopped. It was her voice. Laren, he whispered. Follow the light, her voice said, fading in and out. I waited for you. Without hesitation, he dove straight into the glowing rift. The hunter ships tried to follow, but the rift collapsed behind him, swallowing them whole. Everything went silent. Then slowly, light returned. Eli's ship emerged into orbit around a shattered moon. Floating above it was something massive. A Titan-born vessel, ancient and beautiful, half buried in space dust. His scanners struggled to process it. "An Ark?" he breathed. "A Titan-born Ark." He landed on the ship's surface and stepped out, the airlock opening with a hiss. The inside was silent but not dead. Glowing veins of blue energy ran through the walls. It felt like stepping into a forgotten temple. And then he saw her. Laren, she was alive. Changed, but alive. Her form was smaller now, almost human-sized, wrapped in sleek armor that shimmered with the same blue energy from the Titan core. Her golden eyes opened as he approached. "I told you to live," she said softly. "But you came back." Eli's voice broke slightly. "You didn't really think I'd leave you behind, did you?" She smiled faintly. "Foolish human," he stepped closer. "You used the Ark's core to survive," she nodded. "This ship was my ancestors' last refuge. When I fell, its call awakened me. It rebuilt me, changed me." Eli looked around in awe. This could change everything. Human and Titan-born technology together. It's a bridge between our worlds. Larayan's expression darkened. "If the Syndicate learns of this, they'll destroy it. And us." Eli's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure they never get the chance." The screens around them flickered to life, showing the Syndicate fleet approaching through hyperspace. They were coming for both of them. Laren stood beside him, her armor glowing brighter. "Then we fight together this time." Eli nodded, eyes steady. "Just like before." As the first enemy ships broke through the stars, the ancient Ark's lights blazed awake. The bond between human and Titan-born pulsed like one beating heart. This time the galaxy would remember who they were. The void above the shattered moon flared with light as the Syndicate fleet emerged from hyperspace. Dozens of massive warships filled the blackness, their red engines glowing like eyes of predators. Beneath them, the Titan-born Ark awakened, its ancient systems humming with power that had slept for centuries. Inside the command chamber, Eli and Larayan stood side by side. The walls pulsed with blue light, alive with energy from both human and Titan-born technology merged into one. Holographic symbols spun around them, half in English, half in the runic script of her ancestors. "They brought an entire fleet," Larayan said quietly. Eli adjusted his wrist control, eyes focused on the glowing tactical map. "Then they're scared." "That's good." "They should be," she replied, her voice low, calm, and full of quiet fire. "This Ark was built for war." Eli looked at her, smaller now, but her presence filled the room like thunder. The once enslaved giantess stood tall again, not as a prisoner or weapon, but as a queen reborn. The comms crackled. A cold alien voice filled the air. "Human vessel. Titan trader. Surrender the Ark or be destroyed." Eli smirked. "I think we'll pass." The alien commander's tone darkened. "You're only one man and one monster. You can't stand against an empire." Eli's reply was simple, quiet, and deadly calm. "Watch us," he pressed a button. The Ark's engines came alive, roaring through space like the voice of gods. Energy shields flared open, glowing with both human blue and Titan gold. Outside, the Syndicate ships fired first. Plasma bolts rained down, shaking the Ark. The hull screamed under impact, but the ancient vessel held strong. "Return fire," Laren ordered. Massive cannons rose from the Ark's surface, firing golden beams that sliced through the nearest warships. Explosions painted the stars in orange fire. One by one, Syndicate ships began to fall, but the flagship remained, a colossal beast twice the size of the Ark. From its bridge, the alien lord sneered, "Focus all weapons. Destroy them!" The fleet obeyed. Hundreds of plasma bursts lit the void. The Ark's shields trembled, then cracked. Sparks rained down inside the command deck. Laren grabbed the console to steady herself, her golden eyes flashing. Eli's fingers flew over the controls. "Shields down to 40%. We can't take another wave." "Then we don't," Larayan said. She stepped toward the glowing core chamber, her armor pulsing brighter. Eli's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" She turned, her voice steady. "The Ark's heart is Titan-born. It answers to my blood. If I merge with it, I can push it beyond its limits." "That could kill you," he said. She smiled softly. "You risked everything for me, Eli Cross. Now it's my turn." Before he could stop her, she stepped into the heart of the Ark. Light swallowed her, merging her essence with the ship's ancient core. The Ark trembled as its power surged, light bursting from every surface. Eli shouted over the roaring energy, "Larayan, you'll burn yourself out!" Her voice echoed through the ship, calm, fierce, and full of life. "No, Eli, I'm free now, and so are you." The Ark moved on its own now, alive with her spirit. Its cannons glowed white-hot, and a final beam of pure energy erupted from its center, tearing through the Syndicate flagship in one brilliant flash. The explosion consumed half the fleet. The rest scattered, engines flaring as they fled into hyperspace. When silence finally returned, Eli stood alone on the command bridge, the stars shining through the cracked windows. The Ark drifted quietly, smoke rising from its golden hull. He touched the console where her light still glowed faintly. "Larian," a soft voice answered through the ship's speakers. "I'm still here, Eli. Part of me will always be." He closed his eyes, smiling through tears. "You kept your promise again." The ship hummed gently in response. As the Ark drifted toward the rising sun of a new system, Eli whispered to the stars, the same words that had started it all. "Don't touch what's mine." And somewhere, within the heart of the ship, Loran's voice answered softly, "And don't touch what's his." Together, their voices faded into the light, a legend born of courage, freedom, and the bond between a human and a giantess who refused to bow to chains. The galaxy would remember them, always.